It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome back to another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. Alan Saunders back today after the debacle that was yesterday. If you watched or listened, we recorded an entire episode. Like, we thought it was both of us recording an episode. To be honest with you, I feel like a very good episode.
It was a good episode.
It had to be scrapped. Everything was like double looped. It was really weird. I mean, I shared the video of what was happening just to give transparency in terms of what was going on. But anyways, both of us back today. Alan, how we feeling?
Good. Yeah. Let's hope that you actually get to hear this.
Well, if you guys are watching or listening to this, that's great news.
And it worked. So. Right. Yeah.
That's very good. It's a Tomlin Tuesday, which means we can dive into briefly what was touched on today. I mean, we were going through the notes in terms of what we wanted to talk about here. Not a whole lot came from this Tomlin Tuesday, which is kind of, the past couple of weeks had given us some news, obviously, because of the quarterback position and stuff like that, but really no question in terms of who's going to be the starting quarterback going forward, at least.
He did not commit to anything other than Russ taking first team reps on Wednesday. That's all.
Yep.
That's all he would commit to.
Listen, does Justin Fields have a sandwich at Permane Brothers? I didn't think so. We know who's starting on Monday night for both teams, actually, with Daniel Jones. Brian Daboll confirmed once again.
Much clearer about his starting quarterback intentions than Mike Tomlin.
And I third time this year.
Yeah, I actually was not on the South Side today. And so I didn't get to ask a question, but I would have liked to ask, what happens next? But yeah, I would assume that you're going to see. I was sure that I'm interested to see if we eventually see Justin Fields back in this offense, because I think he's a really good athlete, and there's some meat on the bone there. But yeah, I mean, Russ is going to start.
Absolutely. Which, by the way,
going to start this game even if it didn't go as well as it did. Let me just say that.
I agree. I put a video out there, but Dangerous Sandwich gets a thumbs up from me, and Alan is going to have to try that in the near future as well.
I'm telling you, like, on my normal afternoon drive that you guys see out the side of the car there, we're only about 50 yards from the Permanis. And so this may need to happen at some point this week. Maybe we do like a special, I don't know, but I feel like this is going to happen.
Yeah, and it should, in my opinion. It's funny that I brought up the Daniel Jones thing too, because Brian Daboll reiterated for the third time this season through 6 games that Daniel Jones is the team's starting quarterback. There was some question. Drew Lock obviously came into that football game, and he's a guy that has started football games in the past. Had moments where he looked okay in place of Geno Smith as well in Seattle, maybe just like a reset for him. Could he be a guy? And of course, they have Tommy DeVito as their third quarterback, who briefly won over that city for a period of time last year as well. So it will be Daniel Jones. Any thought on that? Any question as to if that's the right call from them?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think Drew Lock is very good. So yeah, I think that's the right call. But I don't think Daniel Jones is very good either. Like, I think it's clear that the Giants starting quarterback for next year should not be on the roster right now, or is not on the roster right now. And so, this is very, like, as much of a team as phoning it in it could be right now as the New York Giants. I just don't see what they're even attempting to play for. Like, there are some teams that are bad that have, like, the Panthers should probably go back to Bryce Young just to see if they have something that they think they can build around him for the future. Like, well, the Giants have no future pieces, basically, except for Malik Neighbors. And Theo Johnson, by the way, very good tight end out of Penn State. Mike Tomlin mentioned him today, but not a whole lot in terms of future pieces of this New York team, I think, on this
especially with Andrew Thomas on IR for the rest of the season. You obviously have like Dexter Lawrence on the defensive side. You got Banks on the outside. You got they just traded for Brian Burns last year, Kayvon Thibodeau, who's not going to be part of this game. That roster is a mess right now.
Evan Neal, who was their first round pick, might be replacing Thomas. I don't know. He hasn't panned out very well.
There's talk that they've said internally, like there's somebody that put out there, I don't know, like they've account has like 100,000 followers, but what does that mean? Like they do a podcast. Apparently, like their sources have said there's zero plans to play Evan Neal. Like, so that's not going to happen. I don't know
The
what the
Giants gave up
situation have to
8
get to.
sacks to the Eagles last week. I don't really think
Yeah.
it matters much who plays anywhere on that offense. They are just not good
It's a bad
at
situation.
anything.
Maybe they should trade Darius Slayton to Pittsburgh.
Not maybe. They absolutely should trade Darius Slayton to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
This will be 3 straight weeks, though, where the Steelers are playing against a wide receiver that they might want to. Well, Adams didn't play, but they might want to acquire. That's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about a couple of the things that Mike Tomlin did mention. I mean, I was in the stadium Sunday. I know how loud the boos got in there when Minkah Fitzpatrick was called for a penalty on that block extra point. He said that the league confirmed that it was a legal play, should not have been flagged that way. My God, the clips that came from Danny Smith, to me, almost make it worth it that they did flag it, because that was awesome content. But no, in all seriousness, like, again, to see the officials miss that one kind of sucks.
Yeah, it was a bad call. I thought it was a bad call right away. Leverage, you can't stand on a teammate. You can't jump off a teammate. You can't use a teammate to propel yourself. But it was pretty clear that the contact between Minkah Fitzpatrick and TJ Watt's head was completely incidental to him jumping over I guess it was the wing tight end there. It had nothing to do with his ability to do that. Just a putrid call.
Do you ever really see that off the edge too? Because I feel like it's normally like in the meat of the group there, like really within the trenches, like the interior, that those type of plays get called, the leverage.
Yeah, play. I mean, so you can see it when you'll see a guy like put his hand down on a shoulder pad to like really propel himself over. You'll see it called that way, but that's very clearly not what Minkah did. He was already coming down by the time his hand touched Watt on the head. Just an awful call. And just to clear up, because I had some people in my mentions this morning, that is not something that New York can step in. That's not something that is reviewable. No penalty where there is a judgment call to be made is reviewable, either through the challenge flag or through the replay assist in New York. So holding, pass interference, anything like that where there is not an objective portion of it. Now, some penalties have 2, right? So like intentional grounding, they can review whether or not the ball got back to the line of scrimmage, because that is an objective line, right? Pass interference, if the ball's tipped, right? If the ball's tipped, there's no pass interference. They can review whether the ball was tipped, but they are not going to overrule the judgment of the referee or the official on the field. And so this is a judgment call. You have to decide whether or not the contact with the teammate provided an advantage. They very clearly got it wrong, but there's nothing anyone can do after the guys on the field get that wrong. Mike Tomlin was asked about that, and he seemed to suggest that he would be okay with those kind of plays being reviewable, but they are not as things stand right now.
Yeah. Okay. The other stuff that you kind of touched on was injury related. Tyler Matakevich and Cordarrelle Patterson could return this upcoming week. And then Damontae, Kazee, and Donte Jackson expected to play. I think there was some question about Donte Jackson from the fans, Alan, just because I know he's been playing through that. But then you see CJ Henderson get added to the 53. So I think a lot of people were like, oh, does this mean bad news for Donte Jackson? So what's your take on all of that?
Well, my immediate reaction was the same, and then talked to some people, and it sounds like somebody else was going to sign CJ Henderson off the Steelers practice squad. They decided they did not want that to happen, so they are adding him to the roster. They were able to make the spot with Adams going on the IR, and so and interesting about Adams too, because I did not get a very good vibe from Friday's practice when he was injured in practice, and then he was upgraded to probable on Saturday, and then all of a sudden he's out of the game and quickly. I'm not sure what happened there, but I get the sense that's a significant injury. I don't know about season, but it's gonna be 4 weeks already takes us at this point of the year to week 11. I would think maybe even beyond that. Not good. Braden Fehoko re-signed. He was waived with an injury designation in training camp, which means that they had to wait until his injury had healed and then wait another, I think it's 3 weeks before they're able to re-sign him. They did that, and now he's back on the practice squad. Would not shock me at all if he is dressed for this game because they do not have anyone other than Keanu Benton, who they should want to play any nose tackle at all. And so if Benton were to get hurt, they would basically be unable to play base defense unless you're going to play 35-year-old Cam Hayward out of position, which he has done before and he could do, but it wouldn't shock me if you see Fehoko come up right away.
And, not that they're really good at either passing or running the football, especially with their offensive line. But when you have a bigger back like Tyrone Tracy, maybe it makes more sense to at least have Braden Fehoko at the ready if you needed a body like that on game day. So, yeah, I think that's certainly possible. I want to ask about the CJ Henderson thing, just the process of that. Does his agent call and inform them that there's a team that wants to add him to the 53? And
actually, the other team calls. The other team has to call and say, we want to sign CJ Henderson off your practice squad. What do you want to do about it? And
I didn't know they had to give him a heads up like that. I thought they could just sign him.
No,
without.
No, you have to call the other team first. And then, the Giants, 55% 11 personnel. So, I mean, in terms of using base defense, I think there's a decent opportunity for it there. Like, did talk about Theo Johnson. I think he's one of their best eligibles. And they, he's not the only tight end on the roster either. They have Dan Bellinger, who plays a decent amount. And so I wouldn't shock me if we see a lot of 2 running back, 2 tight end kind of looks that bring base defense into play.
I want to talk about receivers, as I feel like this just didn't continue to happen until we reach the trade deadline. We have some stuff to talk about there, but I do want to bring up one more thing before we get into that, because it is such a shame. We dedicated a good portion of a podcast a couple of weeks ago to this, but LC Greenwood will still not be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and really felt like, I think we both shared the same sentiment, that not only should it have already have happened, but this really felt like the year, at least to me, and I believe that you shared the same sentiment, that it was going to. Like, had a really strong feeling that this seemed like everything lined up finally for this to be the year. It's not going to be, and I'm not, I don't know if dumbfounded is the right word, but I'm very surprised that it didn't even get to the next stage within this thing.
I think that's the part of it that has me. I think dumbfounded is the right word. I cannot understand what the selection committee is looking at to say that there are 31 seniors committee players still alive in this class, and LC Green was not one of them. It's mind-boggling to me that, I mean, there are certainly some players in here that I think are deserving of being in the Hall of Fame. I think Carl Banks is one of the all-time underrated linebackers. I think Ken Anderson should have been in a long time ago, quarterback before his time for the Cincinnati Bengals. Some guys that I think, I would vote for, certainly, guys like Lester Hayes and Sterling Sharp. But, I mean, LC Greenwood is the guy that should have been on. There's nobody here that to me is even of his ilk, let alone 31 ahead of him. It's just unbelievable to me that he is still not at the top of this list. I can't understand what people are looking at.
I mean, it shouldn't be this way. But do you think that they've kind of just said, like, that era of Steelers, there's too much representation from, we're done with it?
I mean, I do think there is like a fatigue factor when it comes to getting people from the same team in. And that's why I thought this was a good year, because there is not someone else. Right. Like, he's not going to go in the same year as Ben. I get that, and so, like, I would think that this would have been a good year. I don't think, Hines Ward, I think he's a Hall of Famer, but I think he's got a long process ahead of him. James Harrison maybe gets in this year. I don't know. He wasn't even a semifinalist last year. I felt like LC Greenwood to me could have got in this year. And I think if, like, I can't fathom him not being, I can understand maybe he doesn't get in. I can't fathom him not being here. Like, he is the highest rated. There's a thing called the Hall of Fame Monitor Score at Pro Football Reference. He is the highest rated defensive end that is not in the Hall of Fame. And nobody else, Harvey Martin made it, and he is not as good of a player. Like, they were contemporaries. They were in the league at the same time. I mean, not all the same time, but a good amount of the same time. And LC Greenwood was better. And Harvey Martin is on the list, and Greenwood's not. Like, that's just, I don't know how you jive that. I really don't. I don't understand. Harvey Martin had fewer sacks. You know, he did have more sacks, but he was a one-time Super Bowl winner. He was a 4-time Pro Bowler and a 1-time All-Pro in the league at the same time as LC Greenwood, who won 4 Super Bowls, was a 6-time Pro Bowler and a 2-time All-Pro. Like, it's not close. It's not close. And the idea of the sacks, but Greenwood played on such good defenses. I mean, Harvey Martin, it's just not the same. It's not the same. The Dallas Cowboys obviously were very good in the 1970s, but it's just not the same, man.
I think it goes back to, part of the discussion we had with, like, can you tell the story of, we typically say, the NFL, but can you tell the story of those 70s dynasties without the contributions of LC Greenwood? And I think that his teammates would argue that he was a massive part of that. And being that they've kind of all the other players within that have already gotten their respect and their gold jackets and their bus, he seemed like he should be the next one in line. And I'm just, again, I don't know if dumbfounded is the right word, but I'm very surprised that this wasn't the year.
And, the other part of this is, like, sometimes there's a push for seniors committee guys to, like, honor a player who, like Steve McMichael, who was not doing well in health, and it was like a big push to get him in. I mean, Harvey Martin's been dead for, I think, longer than LC has. Not that, like, I think that's, like, the determining factor, but if you're talking about, like, 2 guys that you both think should go in, I can understand there being a push to get someone in while they're still alive. That's not even a factor there. It's just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
Jim Marshall is the other defensive end that is on this list of 31 players, and I can't proclaim to know anything about Jim Marshall, but I mean, he played for the Browns and the Vikings.
Oh, he's never mind.
And I think, I can't even imagine how that could be a preference.
When we had the discussion on here, because we were talking about who the candidates were from the Steelers, I remember we got a comment from LC's son on the episode. So if LC's son finds his way to this episode, just know that we are making the push.
We just were talking to the guys from the 74 team, and I didn't even ask anybody about LC because I was like, no, he's going to get it. Like, it's not going to be a thing. And man, I don't know.
Yeah. What a shame. Well, we wait at least one more year for LC Greenwood to get his rightful spot. We'll see if it comes then. Very much deserved. But Alan, I want to turn the discussion back to the receivers because that's where we've been. You actually mentioned to me, and I hadn't even seen this, but you put out a take because Cooper Kupp's name now being thrown into the ring. Diana Rossini putting out there that actually the Rams reaching out to teams, not the other way around, about a potential Cooper Kupp trade, saying that they'd be willing to eat some salary, looking for a 2nd-round pick. Obviously, receiver available, Pittsburgh Steelers. People are going to put those 2 things together anytime that comes out. So there we got that. You put out a take about Cooper Kupp, saying that Cooper Kupp being a much better player, but the type of receiver the Steelers are looking for is more of the Mike Williams ilk. What do we got on that?
Yeah, man. Apparently I struck a nerve here with this one. I got a lot of reaction. The Steelers, I think there's like some confusion about what the Steelers need. Like, everyone keeps harping on Van Jefferson playing, and Van Jefferson is not good enough to be the Steelers' 2nd wide receiver, but like Cooper Kupp is not a Van Jefferson replacement. He is a Calvin Austin replacement. Cooper Kupp could play outside some, but like what the Steelers really want to do is run the ball, have teams, as a result of them running the ball, add players to the box defensively so that they can throw the ball deep. That is the entire idea of this offense. And then you have at quarterback a guy whose best trait is his deep ball, and his worst trait is throwing over the middle short. So, like, that fits, right? Russ is a perfect fit for the intent of this offense. And Arthur Smith has used the middle of the field in other places a little bit more. But, like, the idea is run, throw it deep. Okay, a little bit of play action, right? And the thing that they did in this Jets game is that they just ran and threw it deep to George Pickens. If I'm the New York Giants in this game, there are 2 guys on George Pickens every single snap, because you're going to watch what the Steelers did against the Jets and you say they are not going to do that to us. And I don't think the Steelers have an answer to run, throw it deep to somebody else. There's no other deep threat on this team. And that's what they need. They need someone to keep other teams from just double teaming George Pickens and taking that away. A lot more than they need an upgraded slot receiver. Is Cooper Kupp a lot better than Calvin Austin? Yes, absolutely. And it would certainly, you'd be able to use him outside at least some. He's a very good player, but he's not the answer for what this offense really like they're going to, if they trade for Cooper Kupp, the next game, Van Jefferson is still going to play like 75% of the snaps. And that's like, I can just see it. Everyone's like, get Cooper Kupp. Yeah. Why is Van Jefferson still playing? Like, because Kupp doesn't do what the offense needs to keep teams off of George Pickens. He's a really good player. If you can get a really good player for cheap, you get a really good player for cheap. Go ahead, do it. It doesn't seem like the Rams want it to be for cheap. Diana Rossini said 2nd round pick. I am out at that price. I assume, again, like I said with Adams, when it gets reported very early that the team would trade him for a 2nd round pick, that means they're really going to take a 3rd. And that's what happened there. Even at a 3rd, probably. But I don't think he is like a perfect fit or a fix-all. I guess that's a better way to say it. He doesn't fix all the problems with the Steelers wide receiver room. Someone like Darius Slayton, not as good of a player, would probably solve more problems. Someone like Cortland Sutton, not as good of a player, would solve nearly all the problems with the Steelers wide receiver room, right? And that, like, Cooper Kupp signed for 2 more years. Now, I have no idea what the intention would be with those, but like, I think between Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson, they at least have some guys to hope on inside. Like, if you're trading for Cooper Kupp and you're keeping him for the next 2 years, you may as well make Roman Wilson part of that trade, because he's never going to see the field. Like, he's the same guy, just not as good. So, like, I don't know. I think there's some pieces there that they can hope to grow their own. They have no hope at outside receiver. They don't even have one on their practice squad. Lance McCutcheon has been around for 4 years. Like, they're not growing one of their own. Well, they need one.
Yeah, the receiver that we didn't mention within there, I guess, was Brandon Johnson, right? I'm curious to see if he does get a helmet at some point because of the familiarity with Russ. But I wanted to go back to the compensation thing, because Brandon Beane, they were talking about this on the Pat McAfee show earlier. Brandon Beane, who he has a good relationship with, the GM of the Bills, he always asks him from a GM perspective to provide insight. And he said, how would you take the way that this one is being reported? And he basically just said the same thing about, like, they would take less than a 2nd round pick if they're putting that out there about the 2nd round pick. Though also with it being put out there that they are the ones calling, that could mean that they are doing so, or that they haven't heard from anybody, but they want to hear from teams and they just haven't yet.
Yeah. I think this is the Rams just trying to find out what the market is. I don't think it's a sure thing that he gets traded. The dead cap penalty for them to trade him is significant. $50 million over this year and next year. So, like, they're going to have to get something they really want to make this trade. I don't think they're in a position where they're just like, no, get rid of them. Also, so I'm a little skeptical of him getting traded, as I am with most of the people that are on the market, except for Mike Williams. He's the one guy that I think, yes, will get traded. Yes, would be he's not that good, but he's a perfect fit, like, schematically, like square peg, square hole. Right. And then won't cost that much.
The Rams thing too is interesting, just because they're only 2-4, but they've just had so many injuries. Like, they're, to me, a better football team than that when healthy. And this has been a down year for San Fran, who also has their injuries. So they're only 3-4. Like, if the Rams go out Thursday night and beat the Vikings, who that's a tall task. The Vikings are a good football team, but if they were to do so and be right back into the mix, does that just completely erase this idea anyway? Like, is their season basically hinging on the result of Thursday night football, or where are we at with this thing? Because that would be getting Puka Nacua back at some point in the near future too. That offensive line has been banged up.
Don't forget, we have a whole nother week of games before the trade deadline. So, like, I mean, if they go 0-2 in these next 2, And I believe they have the Seahawks in Seattle after that. So that'd be a big division. But like if they beat the Vikings and beat the Seahawks, they're going to be in first place. They're not trading anybody. Like, you know, like that's, I think this division right now looks very close. So I have a hard time. I don't know. I'm fairly skeptical that Cooper Kupp gets traded, as I am fairly skeptical that DeAndre Hopkins gets traded. It seems like he wants to stay there. They want to get a good look at Will Levis. It's hard to do that with nobody to throw to. Traylon Burks just went on IR. There's no one to replace him. I think guys like Sutton and Slayton should be available, but I have not seen that happen.
Well, the thing with Sutton, wouldn't that be kind of that same vein
I guess
Levis?
Like they want to get. They're also 4-3. They're a playoff team right now. So like I don't think they're gonna trade him. I don't think they're very good, but I think they're going to trade him. The Giants, or I don't think they're going to trade him. The Giants, I haven't heard anything about, but like I have no idea what they're waiting for. This season's already over. I don't know.
Yeah.
And unlike, I mean, they're in last place in a division where the Commanders are 5-2, and the Eagles are 4-2 and probably not playing as well as they're capable of playing.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know. That's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. But as it's like, I agree that I think from a fit perspective, Cooper Kupp isn't just like, you know, the best player that we could just drop in here and do an Arthur Smith offense. And that's a big part of it too. We were kind of having this discussion before we started recording, was it's not just a Russ thing. Like it's also just predicated on the type of offense that we've seen Arthur Smith run, where Cooper Kupp, obviously a very good player, but how does he kind of fit into that puzzle? No question how a guy like Mike Williams, Cortland Sutton, somebody that can play on the outside and you know, be a part of those Russ Moon balls and Arthur Smith deep shots that we've seen and will continue to see within this offense. So whether it is a guy like Mike Williams or somebody else, does a guy like Paris Campbell intrigue you at all, who was just cut? He was a name that we brought up in maybe like the second, third tier of free agency, just when we were talking about like, hey, does this guy have a pulse? Yeah. All right. He makes sense for the Steelers then. Does Paris Campbell have any intrigue to you?
I mean, he's a pure slot guy. I guess if they're really like considering just pulling the plug on Roman Wilson and giving him a redshirt year, someone like Paris Campbell would be an interesting addition. I don't think I like him more than I like Calvin Austin at this point. I don't know. And so if you don't, then how does he get playing time? I don't know. I mean, I'd bring him in. I don't know. Like, is he better than Scotty Miller? Yeah. So, like, I guess if you just want to judge it based on that, then yes. But if I'm Paris Campbell, I don't know if I want to, like, what's Scotty Miller getting, like 4 reps a game? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Does that even matter?
Only receiver on the field and 13 personnel.
Yeah, I don't even know if Paris Campbell can block. I mean, that's mostly what Scotty Miller's there for in those instances. He's got 57 run block rate at PFF. I don't know what that means, but certainly he's no it's not like he's some savant at it.
No, I agree. And I wanted to ask you about Roman Wilson though, because I had a couple people tagging me in Tomlin's quotes about him, kind of saying like he needs to just like be out there to be a part of this basically. And I had some people saying like they think it's a long shot now for him to even like be able to get a helmet the rest of the way. Like, is this end up going to be in like a red shirt year for him? Is Brandon Johnson higher on the pecking order if they need another receiver to pull up on game days? Like, where are we at with Roman Wilson? Because I at least for me, I'll give my opinion first here. I've been kind of the mindset like he needs the bye to kind of like reset and hopefully get that time. To obviously I don't know that he's 100% or what's going on with that ankle, but just like get the reps in too. Also had the hamstring. I would be surprised if we don't see him again at all. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think bonus day this week and then into the bye. I think that's a real opportunity for him to show something that you don't really get when you're kind of in the week to week. But I think Brandon Johnson has been the better player since he's been here. Whether that's the injury or what, I don't know. But I think I like Johnson better. And I don't think that's a great sign when you're talking about a 3rd round pick. So, I mean, I think there's a chance that this is just a lost year for Roman Wilson. We'll see. I also think there's a chance that, he takes this extra day this week in the bye and turns it into something and is able to become a contributor in the second half of the season. I think that's I don't think it was ever their intention, injury or not, for him to be a big part of this offense week 1. Like, he's just not that guy. I think something more like Joey Porter's trajectory last year, where he starts out with a very small role, kind of ramps up. Like, I think what Scotty Miller is doing right now is what they intended for Roman Wilson to be doing right now. But with the idea that if he was doing it well, maybe he would get more. And so I really see that as, and the other thing is that could be big. Really, we'll try to watch over this bye is if we see him doing any special teams. That to me would be a real sign that he is getting a real chance of making an impact here, because he looks to me like a player that's going to have to play special teams. I just like I don't think he's so good that he can't. And so he missed all the time to learn how to do it. He's never done it before. This will be a good shot for him to get an opportunity, though.
I kind of wonder, looking back in hindsight, like with Calvin Austin already on the roster, if it was your call, would you have drafted a player like Roman Wilson?
Yeah. I think they're pretty different receivers. I just think that, like, there's plenty of room for Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson to share a slot role and be wide receivers 3 and 4 going forward. The big problem with Roman Wilson is that the Steelers really need a wide receiver 2, and everybody wants him to be that, and he is not that and probably never will be that. That doesn't make him a bad draft pick in the 3rd round, towards the end of the 3rd round. Like, if all you get from your 3rd round pick is a reliable part-time slot receiver, that's still a good 3rd round pick. Like, it just doesn't, it's not fulfilling the need that they have.
Yeah. I guess specifically for me, just because it's within this offense, knowing what they needed and how little the opportunity was going to be for him out of the gate. I don't even know who else was available receiver wise at that point, but I just wonder if they maybe should have went after a different archetype of player for the offense than him. I'd have to go back and look, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting take. I don't think it's totally wrong. I think they have more at like they have more in the slot with Austin than they have outside with Van Jefferson. I think everyone agrees with that, right? So, I guess if you look at it from that lens, Jalen McMillan, another like kind of inside outside guy. Luke McCaffrey's inside. Troy Franklin's inside. I mean, the thing is that none of these guys are really. Nobody else that was on the board is really like. I mean, Jermaine Burton went 4 picks ahead. That would have been the one that you could have fit in there. I don't really see another player that kind of fits the body type that I'm talking about.
How's Javon Baker been lining up for the Patriots? I mean, I don't even know how much he's been playing, but he went in the 4th round.
Yeah, he hasn't played hardly at all. I don't think I don't think he has played at all. If he has, it's been very minimal.
Yeah. I liked him a lot. That would be actually, no, what they should have done is just drafted Ray Davis, who could do anything, and just play him on the outside.
There you go.
You saw on Monday Night Football him flagging down Josh Allen for that pass before he threw him the ball and came down with it.
Ray Davis is great.
All right. Anyways, in all seriousness, before we get out of here, Alan, tell the people they can find you.
At @Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, and TikTok. PGH Steelers Now, SteelersNow.com. Like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications on the YouTube channel so you don't miss it when I roll into Permanis. And by the way, not going to try to film in a Permanis unannounced. We've learned that is a bad idea. So either I will be taking this into my car or we will be getting prior permission. Lesson learned in that regard. And we will you don't want to miss it. So get the notifications going. We are very close to a big round number in subscribers, and I feel like we have been. Actually, are we there? Maybe just today.
We hit 14K, yeah. So the push to 15K is on now. Yeah, 14,029 as we sit here right now.
Okay, well, that's very recent. That might have just been today, actually.
Yeah, within the last, I think it was either yesterday or today. Like I saw that number when I went on to look at comments. So yeah,
there you go.
So thanks.
All right. Let's get to that 15K and we'll give some stuff away again. How about that?
There we go. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. As Alan said, if you were here on YouTube, also hit us in the comments with your thoughts on anything that we talked about or a question for a future episode. If you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and subscribe over there. Just search Steelers Afternoon Drive, the same place that you can find us on TikTok, and then you'll find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH. For Alan Saunders and myself, thanks for jumping in, taking another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.